Well, good afternoon, everybody. With that, I'll turn it over to Sue Siglowski.
Thank you, Susan. Before we get into the actual resolutions, we're just going to give a brief overview about what resolutions are. According to the VSBA bylaws, resolutions are positions taken by the association on issues of importance to Vermont school boards. They may include recommendations for action by the VSBA, local school boards, the legislature, or the executive branch or other decision-making bodies. Resolutions are guidance for staff and the VSBA board when they are working in the public policy arena or developing programs or services for our members. The resolution process begins with the VSBA members. Member boards submit proposed resolutions by the deadline. This year, the deadline was July 15th. The VSBA Board Resolutions Committee, which consists of the Vice President, who serves as the chair, and one representative from each of the VSBA's 11 regions, reviews all the submittals and recommends action to the full board. And that recommendation can be pass, do not pass, or take no position. Then, at its August meeting, the full VSBA board votes on recommendations to the membership on the resolutions. And again, they would be voting to pass, do not pass, or take no position on each resolution. The VSBA board issues a resolutions report, including its recommendations. And each member, SU or SD, designates a board member as its delegate to cast one vote on the proposed resolutions at the VSBA's annual business meeting. All school board members have the right of discussion at that annual business meeting. And this year, the annual meeting is on November 7th at 4:30. The purpose of this webinar is twofold. First, we hope it will assist boards in understanding the proposed resolutions so that they can form positions on the resolutions prior to the annual meeting. And second, we will be reviewing the VSBA board's recommended updates to the existing resolutions so that boards can form positions on the updates prior to the annual meeting. Boards should communicate their positions to the voting delegate for their SU or SD. Let's get started now with the proposed resolutions. I will hand it over to Neil.
Thank you very much, Sue. So there were 11 proposed resolutions which were submitted by school boards from all across the state by the July 15th deadline this year. Proposed resolution number 1, which was submitted by the Mill River Unified Union School District Board, states, Vermont schools should replace paper towels with hand dryers in all restrooms and seek sources of compostable containers for removing waste from school buildings. The background information for this proposed resolution states that paper towels and plastic bags contribute a significant amount of mass in landfills. Single-use plastic bags have a large negative impact on the environment, and the practices of public schools have an impact on the environment. The VSBA board's recommendation for this resolution is do not pass. The VSBA board recognizes the importance of reducing waste, but felt that this resolution was too specific in nature. Additionally, recent studies have shown that air hand dryers can have a negative impact on children's hearing. They tend to be about the same height as our students' heads are, and also that hand dryers can also be less effective than paper towels for hand hygiene. So that was resolution number 1. We'll move on to number 2. Proposed resolution number 2, submitted by the River Valley Technical Center School District, states that the Vermont Legislature direct the Agency of Education to conduct a detailed survey by district to determine the amounts that are being spent on social services, and furthermore, mandate the administration to find alternate funding sources for these social services aside from the education fund. The background information for this proposed resolution states that many school districts in Vermont are spending increasingly significant resources on fundamental social services for their students, and that the disparity in social spending in Vermont is creating a have and have not situation in terms of resources available for education, such as the number of academic programs and extracurricular activities. The board recommends do not pass on this resolution. in large part because the mandated uniform chart of accounts and statewide financial reporting system are being developed and should allow identification of the amounts that are being spent on social services. While the board is sympathetic to the concerns expressed via this resolution, we feel that we shouldn't distract the AOE's and local school districts' work to meet the requirements of the uniform chart of accounts. Moving on to resolution number 3. Resolution number 3 was submitted by the Rutland Town School District and seeks continuation of the current statutory language of 16 VSA Section 266, which allows school boards operating schools to elect 3 members to the SU board, and those that do not operate schools to elect 1 member to the SU board. The background information for this proposed resolution states the Rutland Town School Board is a member of the Greater Rutland County SU and wishes to maintain the current governance structure concerning representation on the SU board. The board is recommending a do not pass on this proposed resolution because it conflicts with a current resolution, number 1C, which states in part, the General Assembly should examine the laws governing supervisory and union board structure and the process for waiving the statutory requirements for SU board structure or composition, taking into account issues of fairness, equity, and funding. So the bottom line here is we already have an existing resolution on the books that we feel covers the issues that are brought forth in this resolution. Moving on then to resolution number 4. Which was submitted by the Addison Northwest School District, states the VSBA will prioritize and use its influence to support Vermont school boards in ensuring that our business managers, superintendents, and school boards receive required, useful, and timely information from the Agency of Education, and that the implementation of the statewide chart of accounts and accounting system will not become a burden on our education system. The background information for this proposed resolution states that Vermont school boards rely on the Vermont Agency of Education's leadership for student success, and that the Agency of Education has failed to provide timely and reliable information to our school systems. It further states that business managers had not received final equalized pupil numbers in June, and that they do not have a working statewide chart of accounts or a working statewide accounting software system. The board is recommending passage of this proposed resolution. Moving on to resolution number 5, which was submitted by the Marlborough and Dummerston school districts, proposes an amendment of an existing VSBA resolution on removal of the moratorium on school construction aid to specify that districts should be eligible for 30% or more in state reimbursement aid, irrespective of school district consolidation status. The background information for this proposed resolution states that many Vermont schools are in need of repair and upgrading for safety and educational concerns, that Vermont suspended school building aid construction in 2007 and has not reinstated it, and that all Vermont schools still operating, whether merged or not, equally house our children, and all children deserve to be equitably safe and educated. The board is recommending passage of this resolution. All right, we're moving right along here. Proposed resolution number 6, also submitted by the Marlborough and Dummerston School District, states the VSBA will consider the impact on the environment when deciding whether to support legislation and initiatives. The background information on this proposed resolution states that global climate problems will be among the major significant issues facing today's students as they grow, begin their careers, and have families of their own, and that the buildup of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is one of the main factors contributing to climate change. It also states that school buildings and their energy use are one of the ways that statewide policy can be effective in addressing climate change. The VSBA board agrees and is recommending passage of this proposed resolution. Resolution number 7, which was submitted by the Meadowy School District, states the Vermont School Boards Association supports a change to state law to allow access to Vermont's dual enrollment program for Vermont resident students who reside in districts that do not operate a high school, whose tuition is publicly funded, and who attend public schools in a state bordering Vermont. The background information for this proposed resolution states that Vermont resident students who reside in a district that does not operate a high school, whose tuition is publicly funded, and who attend public schools in a state bordering Vermont are being denied access to Vermont's dual enrollment program, which is a crucial tool in helping Vermont resident students aspire to continue their education past high school. The board agrees and is recommending passage of proposed resolution number 7. Resolution number 8, which was submitted to us by the West Windsor School District Board, states, the West Windsor School Board requests that the state of Vermont temporarily or permanently cease passage of all unfunded mandates that add taxes to local education allocations. The background information for this proposed resolution states that unfunded educational mandates add to local taxes and artificially inflate the local tax burden, in turn forcing school boards to strip local education budgets in order to accommodate the mandates. The board is recommending a do not pass on this proposed resolution because the VSBA already has an existing resolution, number 2K, that already covers unfunded mandates. Resolution number 9, also submitted by the West Windsor School District Board, requests that the state of Vermont temporarily or permanently cease the transfer of tax burden from the general fund to the education fund without transference of the coordinating funding, and likewise requests that the state of Vermont addresses such burdens as have been placed on the education fund over the last 15 years and restore corresponding funds. The background information for this proposed resolution states that the state of Vermont has added non-educational expenses to the education fund for the last several years without transferring the corresponding funds from the general fund. The board is recommending a do not pass for this proposed resolution because we already have an existing resolution, number 2H, covering the use of the education fund. And in addition, there has been recent legislation that has eliminated the transfer from the general fund to the education fund, which has then decreased the competition between the two funds. Resolution number 10, which is submitted by the Washington Central Unified Union School District, states, the VSBA declares that the Secretary's adherence to the dictates of Act 46 to comprehensively compile and analyze data and present the report with the required conclusions and recommendations is a matter of the highest priority for its member school districts. The background information for this proposed resolution states that Act 46 directed the Secretary of Education to collect and analyze data from the new districts created. This was for the period of January 1st, 2016 through January 1st of 2021 regarding educational opportunities, operational efficiencies, transparency, accountability, and other issues following the merger. Act 46 further directs the Secretary to submit a report to the House and Senate Committees on Education and Appropriations and House Committee on Ways and Means and the Senate Committee on Finance regarding the districts merging under this section, conclusions drawn from the data collected, and any recommendations for legislative action. The board agrees with this and is recommending passage of proposed resolution number 10. And then finally, proposed resolution number 11, which was also submitted by the Washington Central Unified Union School District Board, states, to the extent possible, VSBA will support all efforts to work toward equitable taxation within districts that were ordered to merge by the State Board of Education. The background information for this resolution states that the Washington Central Unified Union School District would like to have a fair and equitable method of adjusting property taxes for the towns within a school district that takes into consideration the impact of pre-existing school debt on small towns after Act 46 consolidation. and the board is also recommending passage of this proposed resolution. So that gets us through all of the resolutions that were submitted by member districts. Did we want to pause at this point in time for any questions before we moved on to revisions of existing resolutions?
Are there any questions, Carrie? Doesn't appear we have any questions, Neil.
Okay, so I know that was a lot of material to go through, and we went through it, I think, probably pretty quickly, but hopefully everybody has the information from the webinar, and certainly you can get the information online. So if we take a look, we have several revisions to existing resolutions. We're seeing the existing resolutions on our screen now. And you'll note at the very beginning of it, proposed changes, I believe, are highlighted in yellow, and deletions are marked with a strike through. So the first one that we'll be looking at is on page 3, section 1I, under board reorganization. We are recommending eliminating this resolution because it's quite frankly been on the books for quite a long time and has not been utilized. Under current law, which is 16 VSA section 561, the assumption may be that board officers serve for 1 year, but it is not mandated. So for those reasons, we are recommending that we strike this existing resolution. Moving on to the next change, which you can find on page 4, section 2B, titled Capital Spending. This is the change that was requested in the proposed resolution number 5, if you remember it from the ones that we just went through. So this is that very same change. Moving on then, same page, page 4, but this time section 2C. This is a general change that was made throughout the entire resolutions document, where we are changing state legislature to General Assembly. So this is essentially a global change to this document. Next up on page 4, section 2E, weighting of students who are English language learners. We are recommending elimination of this one, essentially because the weighting study work is already in progress. Next up on page 6, section 2N, I believe, right? Federal funding for K through 12 programs. We are recommending updating the language of this resolution to reflect current issues on the federal level. So I believe the Budget Control Act is no longer the active one, and just some clarification in language here to continue to support the efforts in this area at the federal level. Moving on to page 6, sections 2.0.2 and 2.0.7 relating to cost containment. We are recommending eliminating the ratios language, essentially because the ratios task force work is already completed. Next up on page 6, section 3A, personalization and proficiency-based learning. We are recommending eliminating language calling for development of a proficiency-based system because the proficiency-based learning is already in progress and underway. The next change, which can be found on page 7, in sections 3A and 3D, simply clarifies that Act 129 is Vermont's public high school choice law. So it's just a clarification. Rather than calling it Act 129, we are using the name of that law now. Then if we go down a little bit further, on page 7, section 3E, the uniform kindergarten entrance age. We are recommending eliminating it as it does not fit in the context of universal pre-K and state determination, which is that 5-year-olds can be eligible for pre-K. Moving then to page 8, section 3F, school time. We are recommending eliminating this because it's redundant. We've already got resolution 3H on the school calendar, which covers the same topic. Moving on to page 8, section 3G, which is early education. We are recommending the removal of the last sentence, which states private providers of early education services that meet high standards can and should play significant roles as partners with school districts and parents. We felt that this sentence indicated that the VSBA supports the mixed delivery system, which may constrain our organization's ability to advocate for a public pre-K system. Then again on page 8, section 4B related to collective bargaining. We are recommending the elimination of this because it's already covered under existing resolution 4A, updating Vermont's collective bargaining framework. It's redundant in this section. And then I believe the last change is found on page 10, section 5B, data collection and reporting. And we are recommending that we update this language by replacing No Child Left Behind with Every Student Succeeds Act and changing Department of Education to Agency of Education. So a change in the federal law, using the correct law, and then just changing Department of Education to Agency of Education. And that whirlwind tour, I believe, covers all of the new resolutions and then the proposed changes to existing resolutions.
Thank you, Neil. One last chance. Are there any questions? If so, please feel free to type them into the questions box. We'll give a minute for you to have time to do that.
At this time, there's no questions. I'm sorry, I was answering a technical question earlier when you asked me, so I wasn't able to pipe right in there, but I do not see any at this point.
Okay, please do remember that VSBA staff is here to answer your questions anytime, so don't hesitate to get in touch with us. We want to thank you for joining us this afternoon, and particularly for your commitment to all of Vermont's children. Serving on school board is hard work and often thankless work, so here's a thank you. Please do remember we have an online evaluation. I think it's 3 questions. It should take you no more than 3 minutes, and we would greatly appreciate hearing from you. So thanks to Sue and thanks to Neil, and have a great day, everybody.